Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon, and thank you Zion for inviting me to be part of this exciting webinar series to really support the great work that you are all doing around promoting mental health in Africa. So I'm going to share my screen with you as I've got some slides to share with you all today. So that should just be coming up on the screen now, so I hope you can all see all of that. So my name is Robin Vernon Harcourt, and I am the Director of the Global Business Collaboration for Better Workplace Mental Health. And I have worked in mental health and diversity inclusion for the past 7 years. And prior to that, I worked on gender programming and livelihood within the international development sector. I'm based in London in the UK, but I've had the privilege to have worked in many countries across the globe and to have lived in both Europe and Asia. And I have family in Ghana, so I'm very lucky to be able to spend quite a bit of time in Africa as well. I'm really passionate about building communities that support our well-being and mental health, particularly within workplaces, as we spend a lot of time at work. So I'm really excited to be with you here today to explore how, as workplaces, as leaders and champions within workplaces, we can bring about positive change on how we view mental health and act around mental health in the workplace. Because it's so important to remember that we all have mental health and that we're all likely to experience poor mental health at some point in our lives. But workplaces can be a really great mechanism to help promote good mental health. It's really encouraging to see the good progress and awareness that is building around mental health. But we know that more needs to be done, and this isn't a race that any of us can win by ourselves, which is why the work that you are all doing as part of this network and collaboration is so important. And that's really at the heart of the mission of the Global Business Collaboration, or GBC for short, which was created by a leading group of global businesses. You can see the founding partners on the screen, who really came together to see how they could use their experience and influence to both advocate the importance of prioritizing mental health at work, but also accelerating positive action on workplace mental health globally, and really building a global community to help us learn from each other and really create what good looks like. So that's a little bit about us at the Global Business Collaboration. But before I go into more detail about the GBC and some of the support and frameworks that we provide to help leaders like yourselves on workplace mental health, I wanted to briefly focus on why should we invest in workplace mental health. Often we see mental health as something that's quite clinical, that should remain within the healthcare sector. So I think it's really important for us to look at actually what is the role of workplaces in fostering good mental health. So we know that the world is facing a mental health crisis, which unfortunately has been exacerbated by the global pandemic. Mental health conditions are increasing worldwide, with 15% of working age adults experiencing a mental health disorder globally and 70% of working age adults in Africa. We also sadly know that one person dies by suicide globally every 40 seconds. So if we think we're going to be together for around about an hour today, that's really sobering, and it really shows the urgent need for action. So we know that there's a really unacceptable human cost of poor mental health, but poor mental health also has a business cost, with poor mental health costing the global economy around £56 billion each year. And that figure is growing. And we also know that 12 billion days are lost each year to depression and anxiety alone. So this not only impacts the communities that we live in, but it also impacts the places that we work. Therefore, workplaces not only need to be aware of the impact of mental health or poor mental health on their business, but they also have a responsibility to create environments that don't harm employees' mental health. Because sadly, what we're seeing globally is that levels of burnout are increasing, and levels of burnout due specifically to work pressures are increasing, with 75% of employees in South Africa showing signs of burnout in a recent study that McKinsey did. You can also see some stats on the slide that show, that 46, so almost half of Gen Zs are saying that they feel stressed or anxious all the time. So there's a real business cost and a business imperative to this as well. But the good news is that work can be a protective factor for mental health. So good work is so important for all of us. It provides a livelihood, it provides a sense of confidence, purpose, achievement. It's an opportunity to build positive relationships, be included in a community, and also have a platform for a really structured routine that can be really beneficial to our health. And we also know that people with mental health conditions, that good work and decent work can be such a positive factor contributing to recovery, inclusion, improved confidence, and social functioning. So the good news is that good work can really be good for us, but also the good news for organizations and leaders within those organizations is that research demonstrates that when companies and organizations do prioritize the well-being and mental health of their people, they enjoy increased employee engagement, increased retention, productivity, and creativity. Because ultimately, when people suffer, businesses suffer, but when people thrive, businesses and organizations thrive. And I think what's really unique about workplaces and the unique opportunity that we have is that workplaces are a cornerstone of society, and they have the potential to not only reach the people working within their organizations, but also having a catalyst effect for the families of their employees and the communities that they live in. So the opportunity here is really huge, and that's why it's so valuable that we're having the opportunity to discuss and look at this together today. We do know, sadly, that there's also a big gap between the needs of people, of us to access mental health resources, but also the gap in mental health resources. So we know that Africa only has access to 1% of the world's mental health resources. We know that this is a big gap and it's going to take time to fill that. But workplaces have a really unique opportunity to play their part and help fill that gap. So there's a lot of positive news, but it can be really difficult for organizations and leaders and champions within those organizations to really know where to start. You might be saying, yes, Robin, we hear you, we're committed, we want to take positive steps, but actually, how do we do that? And it's not easy, and that's where collaboration is really key, so that we can really learn from experiences from one another. What has worked well in some markets, can that be replicated in others, and really together learn from each other to accelerate that progress and create really what good looks like. And that's where our GBC leadership pledge and framework can really support organizations and hopefully really support those of you who are on the call today. So you can see on the slide now, this is the start of the pledge. And what the pledge asks is that the most senior leader within an organization signs this pledge to demonstrate their commitment to taking positive action on workplace mental health in every territory that their business is operating in. And we know from our research that having commitment from leadership within an organization is a really important step. And making a public commitment is even more valuable, because what you're saying is you're demonstrating both internally to your employees that you as a leader, you as an organization are taking this seriously, and that really sets the tone and sets the foundations to build upon your mental health strategy and your mental health activities. But it also sends a signal externally to other organizations within your sectors, other leaders, to actually encourage and challenge them to think about how they are viewing mental health and the support that they are providing within their organization. Because this is really a collective mission that we're all on. We don't want just one workplace to be good for mental health. We want all of the workplaces to be good for our mental health. The Leadership Pledge provides a framework for organisations that outlines 6 areas that we know from our research that if an organisation is taking positive steps to each of these 6 areas, they're going to be making really tangible and sustainable progress around how they are thinking and acting around mental health in their workplace. So you can see the 6 areas on the screen, and I'll just go through these briefly just to introduce each of these areas. But I have also provided some resources at the end of this presentation that provides you with an opportunity to look at these areas in more detail. So the first pledge commitment, is around developing and delivering an action plan to support good mental health in your organisation. And this is really important to put some structure around your activities and initiatives. And this will also help ensure that you have the support and resources that you need internally to do that, whether that's people to support you, budget to create campaigns and initiatives, but being able to provide a structure to the work that you want to do is a really key way to help you also monitor your progress. And this framework provides a really great opportunity to do that. And a starting point could be thinking about identifying one activity that you can do under each of these 6 areas. Moving on to the second pledge commitment, and this is really about how can we promote an open culture around mental health within our organisation, and how can we eliminate stigma? You know, workplaces have a really important role and a really powerful role to play in challenging myths and stereotypes around mental health, around who it is that has mental health, that is of course all of us, and who it is that will experience poor mental health. And again, that is likely to be all of us at some point in our lives, whether directly through experiencing it ourselves or through supporting a loved one or a friend. And workplaces can really demonstrate that experiencing a mental health challenge doesn't mean your career is over. It doesn't mean that you can't really positively contribute to your family, your communities, your workplaces. So this is a really key step for organisations to look at, because we know that this is a really key barrier to progress worldwide. So I'll come back to look at this area in a little bit more detail after looking through these other 6 areas. So the third commitment is really around taking proactive steps to develop a culture and ways of working that create positive mental health and reduce ill health. So we saw earlier on some of the stats around workplaces contributing to the poor mental health of their employees. So of course we want to have workplaces that support people who are struggling, but we want workplaces to create and promote good mental health and not to harm their employees. So just as we wouldn't expect an employee to be physically harmed on the job, and we have health and safety policies around this, we don't want people to be mentally harmed or psychologically harmed at the workplace. So this can look at a range of policies and practices and activities that can help provide good mental health, looking at the 5 ways of well-being and seeing how organisations can embed that within their workplace. It could be looking at policies such as offering flexible working opportunities. We know that really can support people to manage their work and life commitment and really promote good mental health. So the fourth commitment is around empowering your employees to manage and prioritise their own mental health and support one another. So what we see sometimes is that workplaces put in place really great some tools and resources that their people can access, but actually there's a fear or even a lack of awareness that those resources are available, and there's a real role for workplaces to really empower their people to say, this is something that's really important for us. It's important for you and your performance and being a really active team member. And really thinking through how they can encourage and empower employees to manage and prioritise their own mental health. This could be things like making sure people take holiday days and vacation days, making sure people have breaks throughout the day. And there's a real opportunity here to provide supportive communities within workplaces as well. And that can be through providing training to managers or colleagues to spot the warning signs if someone may be struggling, or build their confidence and knowledge to open a conversation if they think someone may be unwell. Not that they would take any role in diagnosing or suggesting treatment, but to be a supportive ear and to be able to then to signpost to further support should that person need it. So that can work really well with training, that can work really well creating networks of mental health champions within your organisation that are trained to have those conversations. And we know that often having the opportunity to speak to somebody and have somebody listen can actually be incredibly valuable in supporting people when they may be struggling. So we can't underestimate the impact that building supportive communities can have within our workplaces. This links very closely with the Pledge Commitment 5, which is around signposting employees to mental health tools and support. So we know it can be really hard to know where to go to for quality support, and that can vary in market by market as well. And so workplaces can provide a really important role in both curating those resources, but also then signposting them so people know where they can go to for support before they get to the stage where they're really struggling. This could be support that you provide internally within your organisation. You may have the opportunity to have an in-house workplace counsellor, but it doesn't need to be. And I think it can be curating a list of charity services that may be available in your country, other services outside of the organisation, and really just ensuring that your people know about these tools and that you're regularly including them in communication. And finally, the last commitment is around measurement. So we know in the workplace that what gets measured gets done. So it's really important for us to measure our efforts and really see what is working and what isn't, so we can adapt and innovate as needed. And I think it's important to say here, we don't want to feel disheartened if a particular initiative that we created isn't quite having the impact that we thought it would. That's very common, and that's why it's so powerful to be part of a network like you are and part of a global community with the GBC. So we can share those lessons learned with one another and really help us to accelerate progress and understand what went well, what didn't quite work, what did we have to adapt. So it's a really important way of us keeping us on track, because this isn't something that will get solved quickly, not within a year. It's an ongoing part of our organisations that we will consistently and constantly be working towards. And so that's really important. So unfortunately, with the time that we have today, we don't have time to look at all of these areas in more detail. But as I said, we do have a range of resources and support where we really focus down on these 6 areas and provide support to help you look at this in more detail. But as per the title of our webinar today, I did want to spend a little bit more time looking at how can we start to reduce stigma and discrimination in the workplace. We know that this is a barrier, stigma is a barrier to progress on mental health work worldwide, and we know that particularly within the workplace this is true as well. Sadly, stigma has an enormous negative impact on the well-being and livelihoods of people experiencing poor mental health or mental health conditions, and this can often worsen their condition or delay in preventing them from accessing support. The Lancet Commission report on ending stigma and discrimination in mental health also described the double jeopardy faced by those who experience mental ill health, with people with lived experience describing stigma as almost worse than the condition themselves. And this is true within the workplace, as research demonstrates that individuals may conceal mental health challenges for fear of being discriminated against in applying for jobs, and that workers may hesitate to disclose or seek help when in work because they fear negative career consequences. So challenging stigma is a really important first step for organisations because you could be creating a brilliant suite of resources and support for your people, but we know that if the culture isn't open, then your employees and your people aren't going to be reaching out for that support. So it's really important for us to think about this. So I wanted to briefly share some steps to think about as a starting point, and I've also included some further videos and toolkits and guides for each of these areas to look in them in a bit more detail. So the first, that we know it's really important to start by raising awareness of mental health to really build knowledge. So it may be that there is a lack of understanding around what mental health is, many stereotypes and myths. So it can be really powerful for organisations to run awareness raising campaigns around mental health. And it can be very effective to link these with national or global awareness days. So for example, we have World Mental Health Day coming up on the 10th of October. So often you can find some really great resources linked to global awareness dates or national awareness dates that you can look at adapting for your organisation. And I've shared a guide on the next slide, which looks specifically at some examples of awareness campaigns that we hope will inspire you to look at how you may adapt them for your workplace. Secondly, once we are starting to raise awareness, it's really important that this isn't just one point in time, that to normalise conversations and combat that stigma, we need to be talking about mental health regularly. So that's thinking through, how can we include this in your employee communications? Do you have internal newsletters or intranets where you can include information around mental health? Can you hold webinars or lunch and learn events for your people that really look at different areas around mental health? And sometimes it can be hard to get engagement to begin with. So you could think through linking mental health with topics such as sleep or sport. We all sleep, and we've probably all struggled with getting to sleep at some point, and lots of us enjoy sport. So it can be a really good hook and a way to encourage interest if where you're holding a blog or a discussion around sleep or sport, but then really linking that with mental health and how mental health can impact our sleep, how it can impact our performance in sport and otherwise. So those are sort of a few ideas that you could think through around how to have that regular drumbeat of communications around mental health. We also know that to create a culture where people feel safe talking about mental health, it's really important that leaders speak openly about mental health. That really creates a psychological safety within workplaces if leaders are talking openly about mental health. A really good starting point can be leaders sharing what they do to maintain good mental health and well-being. That might be sharing some of their tips around exercises that they do, getting good sleep, volunteering, whatever it is for those individuals. So encouraging conversations around promoting good mental health. And we also know that stories of mental health experiences and recovery are so powerful. And one of the most impactful ways to reduce stigma, dispel myths, challenge those stereotypes that sadly we still too often see associated with those of us who experience poor mental health or mental health challenges. Although it is really important to do this safely, to safely empower and support both your leaders and other colleagues across your organisation to share their experiences. You don't want them to be put in positions that wouldn't be safe for them. So what I've included on this slide is a couple of resources and videos and guides that you can have a look at after today that really goes into some of these areas in a little bit more detail. So how do you address mental health stigma within your organisation? How can you do that if you are a national organisation, a global organisation, multinational organisation? And also a guide on, how can you empower and start creating a culture where people feel comfortable sharing their experiences of both good mental health opportunities, but also their lived experiences of mental ill health. So I am conscious that we are nearing the end of our time together today. So I wanted to share with you some resources to support your next steps and to continue our collaboration together. So we would really encourage all of you who are leaders within your organisations to sign the Leadership Pledge and really be part of our global community of leaders and organisations working together to really challenge and make progress on this really important area around mental health and well-being. We can also provide a pack in more information for you to share with your leaders in your organisation, to share more information about what GBC is, what the Leadership Pledge is, and why should they sign and bring your organisation into this community. By signing the pledge, you'll also have access to our resources, events, networks. There's no cost to signing the pledge, and there's no cost to accessing our resources. And we do have a resource library on our website, which has case studies from other businesses, guides to support your organisation, look at different steps that you may wish to take aligned to each of those 6 pledge commitments. And similarly to this brilliant webinar series that we're having today, we also have a webinar series where we have the opportunity to look at each of the pledge areas in more detail and share experiences, advice, tips from other businesses around the world, sharing what they have done to take positive steps aligned to each of those pledge commitments. So I've shared more details on the slide of the next event that we have coming up. That is next week on the 28th of September. That's very much focusing on that 4th pledge commitment, which is around how do we empower our people within our organisations to both manage their mental health, but also prioritise their mental health and support one another. So we would be delighted for all of you to join us for that virtual event if you would like to do so. And you can see details on how to register on the slide. So I wanted to end by really thanking all of you today for your time, your attention. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this wonderful network. And thank you to Zion and the team for all the fantastic work that you are doing around promoting mental health in Africa. It's such an exciting network to be part of. And we really look forward to how we can continue our collaboration and our work together. Zion will share any questions that you have after this presentation with me, and I look forward to continuing our collaboration and looking forward to meeting with you all again soon. Thank you.